All right, so for those who might join us on YouTube, my name is Grace Nzula, and I'm the host of Get It Right with the Tara Solutions. And tonight, our sign language interpreter is not Catherine Sidandi. Catherine Sidandi, we are praying for your recovery, but she was kind enough to link us up with Felix. Felix Otieno, thank you very much for joining Get It Right with Atara Solutions. And I hope that you get to learn as you also make us inclusive. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We really don't take it for granted that you're able to do this with us. So tonight we are discussing idioms, and with us is none other than Lydia of Abuya. She is going to introduce herself and then take it away. You're on mute. Sorry.
Apologies. Thank you, Grace. My name is Lydia Abuya. I am in Domestic Taxes Department, ITIMS Operations Office, in charge of business automation. And I'm glad to be in this space, and I hope the engagement will be informative to the listeners who have joined this call.
Thank you, Lydia. I think you can actually just go ahead and make your presentation.
Thank you. Give me a few minutes. Let me share my screen.
I don't know, is Lydia talking about? Or is it Charles who needs to work on his...
Apologies, just give me a few minutes. You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, just confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen. You can probably put it on slide mode, presentation mode.
Thank you. It is on presentation mode. Just confirm.
No, we can see your home. You can see your home and everything else.
Okay. Give me a second. How about now?
It's still not on presentation mode. But probably you can just go ahead. We need to play slides and it's not playing.
How about now?
We can't even see your screen. You have not shared screen.
Okay, I have. Maybe let me just try it again.
As you do that, allow me to ask. Okay, it's still coming the same way. I think you just go ahead in the interest of time.
How about now?
Still not.
Okay. Let me just blow it up. Can you see?
Yes, we can. We can see it.
Slideshow?
No, not slideshow.
Okay, then I don't know what's happening.
We just go ahead, it's fine.
Okay. Maybe let me just go ahead. So I'll start by introducing ITIMS. What is ITIMS? ITIMS is an automated software solution KRA is implementing to facilitate taxpayers to generate, sign, and transmit invoice data to KRA. So ITIMS is a software system that allows for electronic invoicing. And these are some of the features it has. It is free. Taxpayers can download the software and install in their various gadgets, that is laptops, computers, tablets, phones, and start invoicing through the system. One can also use the online platform either through the eCitizen or eTeams portal and generate the invoice. The second characteristic is that it simplifies tax return filing. Simplification of the VAT, especially for taxpayers who have VAT obligations. The first VAT simplification return was rolled out in February of 2024. And this was achieved through the invoice data that was being received from the various taxpayers during the month of March. The simplified VAT return was rolled out. For taxpayers' details to be captured on the return, there is need for the seller to capture the PIN of the buyer so that this information can be pre-filled on the VAT return while they are filing their VAT return on a monthly basis. Then it is flexible. The system is flexible and able to fit each business needs and preferences. Taxpayers are able to choose from the varied options that are available. That is the simplified solutions, the e-client solution, and the system-to-system solutions. So depending on the size of your business, if you're a small business, you can be able to choose from the e-client or the simplified solution. If you already have a system, then you can be able to integrate your system through the system-to-system integration. Then we have it builds compliance. Taxpayers are able to comply with the various laws that are in place. This is through querying of the details of the invoices that they have been issued by scanning the QR code or querying the invoice data using the invoice number through the invoice checker on the iTax landing page. There's an enhancement that has been done. So currently, if you are business to business, if you are business to business and your PIN has been captured on the invoice data or the invoice details, once you go to the checker, you can be able to see if your PIN has been captured, and what will be displayed is the buyer name, details that will be displayed after querying or scanning the invoice. Then we have an additional characteristic of this system is that it has an easy stock control, where the system is able to basically monitor stock levels of businesses that deal with products, and those businesses can be able to track the stock movements in and out of the business. So the next slide, apologies, the next slide is why electronic tax invoicing. So the reason why we are doing electronic tax invoicing is because, one, it aligns with the best practice. Majority of the tax authorities are currently implementing the electronic tax invoice, where taxpayers transmit the transactional details to the authority for proper accounting and record keeping of the income tax expenses. We have enhanced transparency and efficiency. The system enables taxpayers to have transparency of the transactional details that will have transmitted to the Revenue Authority for purposes of claiming the invoice as an expense in their income tax return or input in their VAT return. Then we have enhanced tax compliance. The mandate is the mandate of actually visibility of transaction is being expanded to other taxes. Initially, this was being implemented for VAT taxpayers who are mandated to transmit the transactional data. Then over time, it was over time and through the provision of having a system in place, it ensures that everyone who's conducting a business is able to transmit their details to us. Increased tax revenue through encouraging all businesses and individuals to issue an electronic invoice. for both business to business transactions and business to customer transactions. This will have an economic impact through increasing tax, and hence visibility of transaction will also ensure the authority's expansion of the tax base to various taxpayers. So what is the legal basis for electronic invoicing? For us to implement this system, we needed to be backed by legal legislation, and one of the legal legislations is the Income Tax Act, which has two sections that provides for it. Section 16, 1C. Basically, this is where it states that any expenditure or loss where the invoices of transactions should be generated through an electronic tax invoice management system. And then it also states that there are some transactions that have been exempted. I shall be able to go through those transactions in a minute or so. Then we have Taxpayers Procedures Act, Section 54 of the Income Tax Act. Basically tells taxpayers to keep records, and what it states is that any person carrying on a business shall keep records of receipts and expenses with regards to either services that have been rendered or goods purchased. Then in the Tax Procedures Act 2015, Section 23, basically this states that the electronic tax invoice is where this gives the power to the commissioner to come up with a system for issuance of an electronic tax invoice. And this was done earlier on. We started implementing in 2005, where electronic tax registers were initially rolled out, where VAT taxpayers needed to generate their invoices. Then once that, over time, it was felt that these invoice transactions, they need to be transmitted to the Revenue Authority. Then we started the implementation of the tax invoice management system, and eventually to the electronic tax invoice management system, where now it mandates every taxpayers apart from VAT, meaning including the non-VAT taxpayers, should also come on board. And hence, that is how now the legal provisions that are actually enabling us to implement this law was passed. Then we have the VAT, the value added tax, section 42, where this is where the law states that a taxable supply, at the point of a taxable supply being done, then the purchaser should be furnished with a tax invoice detailing the description of goods, the quantity, the amount, and the taxable value. Then we have the Tax Procedures Act regulations that were actually published on March 28th, 2024. This basically creates a framework of the electronic tax invoice and guides the taxpayers on what to do. Maybe just to mention, Section 86 of the Tax Procedures Act also, this one also details the penalties that taxpayers shall be liable if they don't produce a tax invoice. So who should adopt the e-teams? All persons, stroke entities in businesses, both taxpayers who have VAT and non-VAT are required to register and issue an electronic tax invoice. And just a pictorial on who else this implementation is targeting. We have the carpenters, we have the saloonists, barbers, boda boda riders, the fruits and vegetable sellers, meat sellers, all those are supposed to come on board and generate an electronic tax invoice. So these are the e-teams solutions that are currently ongoing. The first solution is the e-teams Lite. This one is has been rolled out, and it is on the eCitizen platform. So when a taxpayer goes to the ecitizen.kra.go.ke URL, they can be able to register there, or they can also register using the USSD on *222#. We also have a mobile app for the same, where taxpayers can be able to download the mobile app and start invoicing using the e-teams Lite solutions. Then we have the e-teams client. This one is suitable for traders who are selling goods, and it cuts across. So these client solutions, one can be able to install on their laptop, on their tablet, on their EPOS, the PDAs. They can also install on their phones. Then we have the e-teams online portal. This one is suitable for traders who are supplying services only. So once you sign up on our portal, you can be able to get the password, the login credentials, and you start generating an invoice. Then we have the system-to-system integration. This one is for taxpayers who already have a billing system and they'd like to integrate with us. Therefore, we've provided for system-to-system integration, and we've exposed our APIs where taxpayers can be able to integrate with us. And as they generate their invoices, they are signed and transmitted to KRA. So how to onboard on e-teams? Taxpayers are encouraged to sign up via eteams.kra.go.ke. Once they click on the service, once they sign up, they will log in, and then they will click on the service request tab and select the e-teams solutions that they would like to use. Then they will be able to upload some documentation. One of the documentation is the sign up, the commitment form for signing up, and director's ID. Then you'll click send. Then once that is done and it is approved, the software configuration will be done. That is downloading of the software. If you want it to be installed on your laptop, you will download the eClient solution. If you want the online one, you don't need to download. So once it has been approved, you'll just log in and start invoicing. Then after the configuration has been done, then invoice generation and transmission to KRA begins after that. How to onboard on e-teams Lite? So there are 8 steps of onboarding on e-teams Lite. So one of the steps is on your computer, laptop, tablet, or phone, you will open the KRA browser for eCitizen.
We
And
have lost it.
sorry, at what time did you lose me?
Just when you're finishing on step 1.
Okay, let me just repeat. So how to
Even your
onboard on
screen
it?
is not sharing. Sorry.
Apologies for that. Okay, just confirm.
Yes, we can see your screen now.
Okay,
Sorry, I
thank
was
you.
also on mute. Yeah.
So how to onboard an eTeams Lite? So on your computer, laptop, or tablet or phone, open the browser for KRA, eCitizen portal. Then that is ecitizen.kra.go.ke. Then once you open that browser, you will be able to, if you have an eCitizen account, you'll be able to log in. If you don't have, you will need to sign up. Then the step 3 is, of course, there'll be an OTP verification that will be sent via email or your phone, and then you'll be able to enter the OTP that will be sent. Then once you've entered the OTP and clicked on the next step and clicked on next, the step number 7 is that it will redirect you will be redirected to the KRA Citizen user interface, of which you need to initialize the eTeams. That is, you need to accept the terms and conditions so that eTeams invoicing can be activated. Then once that is activated, you can be able now to start invoicing using the eTeams Lite. And the beauty with this solution, if you are invoicing using the USSD or the mobile app solution, or you are on the online portal solution for eCitizen, all those invoices are actually synced. So it will continue sequentially, and you can be able to reprint the invoices whenever you want. So if you're using the USSD, if you are using the online portal and the person you are sending the invoice is also online, you can be able to save and send the invoice, or just download and send them on an email, on their email. Then we have the USSD option. How do you register? So when you dial *222#, you'll just follow the prompts. You will select option 5. There are other options to select from, but here you'll select option 5, tax payment to KRA. Then once you select 5, there's another prompt that will come, and then you will select option number 2, which is eTeams invoice. Then you will enter your ID number and then your year of birth. This is the first step when you are doing the USSD. Then after that, you will select your year of birth. Then you will enter option 1 for registration. Then once you've registered, when you go back and log in, once you've registered and you go back and dial *222#, you will just select number 5, option 5, then option 2. Then after that, it will ask you to either create a sales invoice, a credit note, and then you will just select option 1 and then follow the steps, and you'll be able to generate an invoice using the USSD option. Who may use my next slide is who may use a system that does not record stock. As I had mentioned earlier on, this system has stock management, and some taxpayers don't have stock, and these are the taxpayers who don't need to use the system that does not record stock. One, a person providing services. If you're providing services, then you don't have stock, because a service does not have stock at the end of the day, so you don't need to record your stock levels. Then a person using the simplified solutions. So if you're using the eCitizen solution, that is the USSD ecitizen.kra.go.ke or the mobile app, that one you don't also need to record your stock. You just invoice, and the invoice will be generated. And finally, any person using a system prescribed by the commissioner. So the commissioner may establish an electronic system through which the electronic invoices may not be issued, and records of stocks are kept. So with guidance of the commissioner, depending on how the nature of business of a person is, then you'll not be able to. It is not mandatory for you to maintain the stocks level. So we have exemptions, people who have been exempted, or transactions that have been exempted by law as part of this implementation. One is the emolument subject to pay. So if you have employees and you pay them emoluments, then they don't need to issue you a tax invoice or a tax invoice for you to pay them. So this one has been exempted. Then we have importation of goods and services. We are integrated with our sister department, the customs department, through ICMS. We are able to get these transactions, and they are also validated when you are filing the VAT return. Then we have air passenger ticketing. These ones have also been exempted. Investment allowances, including internal auditing adjustments. Internal auditing adjustments are adjustments such as exchange gain. Let's say if you are dealing with foreign exchange, you are issuing your invoices in dollars, but what you are saying is that as much as you are trading in dollars, then when you are issuing that invoice should be converted into Kenya shillings, and the Kenya shillings is what is meant to be transmitted. So in cases of any exchange gain or loss, then that is usually accounted for in the profit and loss account when you're doing your return at the end of the year. Then we have fees charged by financial institutions. Those ones have also been expressly exempted in this implementation. They don't need to have an electronic tax invoice. We have income that then we have services provided by a non-resident without a permanent establishment in Kenya. Those ones have been exempted. And I think a good example is Netflix. Those ones you don't have to have you don't need to be provided for with an electronic tax invoice. Then finally, we have expenses subject to withholding tax as a final tax. Those are the ones that have been exempted. Further bases for exemptions are transactional information received through a platform recommended by the commissioner. So basically, if the commissioner gives certain transactions to be exempted, then they will not be needed to have an electronic tax invoice. Then we have the information is transmitted to the authority system upon application. A person provides an alternative method of recording, storing, and transmitting those transactional data. So what you are saying is that you need to show the commissioner that these particular transactions the visibility is there, and they can be accounted for at the authority system, so that those transactions can be exempted from being issued an electronic tax invoice, and the person transaction information may not be under mandate of any other ministry stroke regulatory body, basically within the country. So those are the basis of exemptions. Then if you want to learn about eTIMS, we encourage you to go to our website, www.keri.go.ke. Under business, we have, if you search eTIMS, you'll be able to get all the information in regards with eTIMS, what it is, who should use it, everything about eTIMS is there, and the various solutions that are available for purposes of implementing this solution. Then finally, if you want to reach us, those are our contacts. Those are the various telephone numbers that you can be able to reach us on. And then we have our email, teamsupport@keri.go.ke. If you need to write to us, you can also reach us through our mail. And then finally, if you want to come physically to our offices, we are the Teams Operations Unit is seated on the 8th floor at JKUAT Towers, which is in Kenyatta Avenue. So I think thank you, and we open the session for Q&A session. Maybe I'll just leave this for a while so that people can be able to take the contacts.
Thank you very much, Lydia. You have no idea how many questions have been coming through. I am wondering where to even begin, but we shall try and answer as much as we can. Like I said before, if you have a question, please don't put it on the chat. Bring it to the Q&A for ease of prioritizing and also following through. There's somebody who sent a question. David Kimani says he's a medical doctor and he has two issues. The first one is KRA is asking for the invoice I passed to the insurance company. Problem is that this information is confidential. And that means that there will be breach of clients of the Data Protection Act. How do they go about it? And then his second question is the invoice to insurance companies. They let the patient go, then pay late, often within 3 months, unless the invoice KRA expects taxes on invoice not paid amount, meaning I am paying taxes on monies not paid. End result is we demand cash before services are offered, and you sign waiver for data protection if we are to treat, leading to denial of access of fundamental rights to healthcare. And I think the question that we can answer here is how are doctors invoicing with the disclosing information on the eTIMS? I don't know how you can answer that, Lydia. Please, if you have a question,
Thank you very much.
not on the chat, put it on the Q&A. Yes, Lydia, go ahead.
Thank you very much for that question. Maybe I'll start from differentiating between business to business transactions and business to customer transaction. So for business to business transactions, it is mandatory for the PIN of the buyer to be captured. The reason is this will form part of your expenses, especially for income tax purposes, so that when you're filing your end of year return, then you can be able to account for the expenses that have been issued by the seller or that were incurred for purposes of that particular business. For this question regarding the doctors, KRA does not want to know the name of the patient, but what it wants to know is the transaction details of that particular invoice, that this particular invoice is going to pay insurance X or Y for insurance X or Y for purposes of this insurance to claim their expenses at the end of the year. Remember, the insurance income is from the various the various the various the various how can I put it? This word is like passing my head. The various contributions that are being done by their clients. Hence, this insurance company at the end of the year, they will pay expenditure for the various claims that will be done at the various hospitals. And that is why we are saying that for insurance companies, then when you're invoicing the insurance company, then you need to capture their PIN for purposes of claiming that expense in the return. With regards to payment within 3 months, you can, yes, payment within 3 months. Maybe let me just answer that question with regards to tax point. The tax point for VAT and income tax is different. For VAT, the tax point is incurred at the point of invoicing or when the delivery of goods are done, or when someone receives partial payment. That is when we account. That is the tax point of VAT. For income tax, remember, you file your return at the end of the year, and you've stated here that you are paid within 3 months, and I think that also covers it also covers the time when, by the time you'll be filing your income tax return, then this payment will have been done. In case the payment is not done, the system also allows you to do a credit note on the same, and the credit note should be issued within 6 months from the date the invoice was generated. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Lydia. Now, the question that has been lingering, I think I've seen 3 of them, is the difference between teams and e-teams, and if you have a team's invoice, a team's machine, do you also need to be registered on e-teams?
Thank you. The difference between Teams and e-Teams is that Teams is a device-based solution. E-Teams is a software-based solution. So if you are on e-Teams, it is not mandatory for you to come onto e-Teams, but we are finding situations where taxpayers who are on Teams are also in e-Teams. So at the moment, it is not mandatory as long as you're issuing an electronic tax invoice.
That means the one on the Teams, the one with the QR code, right? The one that we changed machines last year.
All invoices have QR codes, whether they're generated on Teams or e-Teams. The only difference will be the serial number, which is different, and that the format of the serial number is different, and also the format of the invoice number, but all invoices are valid, and they are all transmitted to us, so they are all valid.
Okay. And Bani says, if e-Teams is mandatory, is e-Teams mandatory for sole proprietorship? And if so, how does one invoice individual clients and corporate clients?
Thank you for that question. Yes, Teams is mandatory for anyone who is dealing with who has business. So in Kenya. So if you have a business and you want to invoice another business, then the PIN of the other business is mandatory to be captured. So if you go to the invoicing template, when you're generating an invoice, then you'll be able to see the two different categories where we have you raising an invoice for a B2B transaction, business to business transaction. So it will be abbreviated as B2B. Then the other one is business to customer transaction, which will be abbreviated as B2C. So for B2B transactions, business to business transaction, it is mandatory for you to capture PIN details of the other business. And it is the responsibility of the buyer to issue their PIN at the point of invoicing for their PIN to be captured. Then we have B2C transaction. These are business to customer transactions. This one, it is not mandatory for you to capture the PIN of the customer. So once you generate the invoice, then we'll be able to, and it is transmitted. The ones that have PIN details, the ones that have been captured with the PIN details of the business, will be classified as B2B transactions. The ones that don't have PIN of the customer or the buyer, then they'll be categorized as B2C invoices. So that is the difference between the two.
Okay. And then there's a question from Alan. At what point is the sale considered in case of horticulture produce, where payment is made on net weight after weighing and sorting at pack house, which is different from farm gate? Also, where produce is sold to brokers who should raise the eating invoice.
Thank you. So with this implementation, we've realized that because of some nature of business transactions, then their business is actually done in a different way, meaning that once the produce is delivered to the purchaser, then it has to follow certain processes before payment is done. And that is why they're saying the net weight vis-a-vis what was delivered. So for such transactions, we have further come up with other types of solutions for invoicing. At the moment, we know the traditional invoicing method where the seller actually generates an invoice to the buyer, and then that invoice is actually valid, and that is it. Then we have these transactions that are done after delivery has been made, and then other processes follow. Meaning, at the point of delivery, you don't know the unit price of this produce, and you won't know the net kilograms, or rather the weight of this particular produce when you are delivering. So what we've realized is that majority of these businesses already have an existing system that is in place from the point of delivery to the point of payment. So what happens is that the processes will still continue. Then at the point of payment, they usually give the person who delivered the goods a certain documentation for payment. So what we are saying, why don't you convert this documentation to an invoice? Then at that point, because you already know the unit price depending on the grade of this particular produce that has been delivered, you've also known the weight, And because you already have, the system already knows that for a certain grade, the unit price will be X, because they are graded differently. Then at the end of it all, a document is generated for payment. Then at that point, there is a system to system integration with ourselves for that document to be converted into an invoice and then transmitted. So that particular process is what we refer to as reverse invoicing. So we have the traditional invoicing, we have the reverse invoicing for taxpayers who already have an existing system, a trusted system, and this system will only issue invoices for that particular product. So it cannot issue invoices outside for purposes of reverse invoicing, where the buyer now generates an invoice on behalf of the seller after knowing the net produce of that particular seller. So that is what we call reverse invoicing. Then we have another invoicing method that we call the buyer initiated invoicing. This is where you don't have a system. People are organized for sectors that are organized, but they don't have a system. So the buyer initiated invoicing will work like this. So you can be able to have an Excel sheet where you've captured all the details of these particular transactions. Let's say the ID number, the kilograms, the unit price, and all that. And then you upload this form. It doesn't matter. It can even have up to 4,000 records. Then you upload the form. But now this one will be hosted on the eCitizen platform, where now the invoicing will be done on the back end. And once the invoices have been initiated by the buyer, then the seller will have to either accept or decline that particular invoice for purposes of payment. So those are the three options that we have for such a scenario. And I think I added one more so that I can explain the various options. For reverse invoicing, what is happening is that taxpayers are actually getting in touch with the e-teams operations team so that you can be able to share with them uh, the specifications document and the various documentation for them. Actually, majority of the work is being done with the taxpayers who have this kind of setting. And then once they go through the various research and development and all that, they'll be able to be approved for this system for the reverse invoicing. And for reverse invoicing, the seller and the buyer must have an agreement for such invoicing to happen. For the buyer initiated invoicing, the seller will have to accept or decline. That is the difference between the three types of invoicing, and the buyer initiated one will be hosted on the eCitizen platform. Then I think the last question was if I think I've answered the last question. If a broker is the one who is buying, who's supposed to invoice. So depending on their scenario, then they have these three options of invoicing. Either the traditional method where where the seller invoices the broker, the reverse invoicing option all where all players are identified within that system for purposes of invoicing, and then the buyer initiated invoicing where the broker now uploads the details of the various sellers, and then from the back end an invoice is generated, and then they need to accept or decline. The seller needs to accept or decline. Thank you.
All right. Well, a lot of people are saying, please do a practical example on how to generate an invoice invoice. And hey, okay, there are quite a number of questions, and I see questions. My friend Willie Rora, how are you doing? He says if one had the eating software on the laptop and wants to change to online, do they need to change anything? I've also seen a question on when they generate the wrong invoice, how can they go ahead and do another invoice as well?
Okay, thank you for those two questions. So if you have any solution, let's say you have the e-client solution installed on your laptop and you want to go online, or you want to change to system integration, then for you need to apply for a change of solution. Then with this process, then you'll be able to change the solution from one to the other, depending on your business needs. So that is available, and you can go to any KRA office and you'll be able to be assisted. If one has generated a wrong invoice and they need to generate a new one, first thing is that they need to issue a credit note for the wrong invoice that was issued. And then, so what this will do is that it will cancel the original invoice. And then once that is done, they generate a proper invoice with the proper details. Thank you.
I don't know whether it's me, but I didn't hear the last word you said.
Sorry, I said if they've issued a wrong invoice, they will need to cancel that by issuing a credit note. And then once that is done, then they generate a new invoice with the proper details.
Okay, and I've seen three questions on rental business. How do they file for tenants?
Sorry, come again?
Rental income, do they need to invoice the tenants?
Yes, they need to invoice the tenants. The law states that any person in business, and that one has not been exempted from the exemptions that I had earlier mentioned. So everyone who is earning an income, apart from the ones that were business income, apart from the ones that were actually mentioned earlier on, they are meant to generate an invoice. And maybe just to mention, in the income tax return, the one we usually file at the end of the year, the sources of incomes are clearly defined. One is the employment income, the one we normally, if you're employed, the one you usually do. Then in case of any business, the other sources of income are business income, we have rental income, we have farming income, commission income, and interest income. So these sources are clearly defined, and rental income is part of incomes that are usually earned, and hence you are required to generate an invoice. And maybe just to add, we have two types of invoices for rent. One is the commercial rent, and the the residential the residential rent. So for commercial rent, this one is actually charged 16%. For residential rent, it is non-VAT. It is classified as non-VAT, and that is tax type D when you're generating that particular invoice. Thank you.
All right. And my business has very small customers buying goods worth as low as 100 or 50 bucks. I will be required to issue them an eating invoice. It will be very tedious. Can I do one cash eatings invoice once per day as a cash sale for the day?
Thank you for that question. Each invoice should be, I usually say whenever we go to I'll give an example of the supermarket. Everyone will come to the supermarket, purchase, get their products, and then at the end of the day, when you leave the counter, each and every person has a receipt, whether it is a 10 bob, whether the good that they're buying is 10 shillings or the good they're buying is 1,000 shillings. They will all have an invoice. So yes, and that is why we are classifying the different types of invoices, where we have B2B and B2C. And for purposes of accounting, it is we advise that each transaction should have its own invoice.
Okay. There's a question from Jay who says, how do remote workers for foreign-based companies raise invoices on their teams? Where?
Sorry, come again. Remote workers for foreign-based companies.
Yes. How do they raise their invoices?
For foreign-based companies, maybe
Like
I'd like
somebody working
to.
in Kenya for a company in, say, the US, how do they send them the invoice? Would they need to use VTIMs?
That is why, okay, I needed to like follow up with a question. How, okay, one, if you're in Kenya and let's say your company is in USA, because I know there are some companies that have physical presence in Kenya, and what happens is that their employees are actually paid and pay is deducted. So for such companies, they fall under that other category where they'll actually account for their payee, hence they'll not need to issue an invoice. Then if they are in Kenya and they are consultants for a company based in USA, then they will generate an invoice to their company in USA. And I know, as I said earlier on, maybe they are paid in dollars. So what happens is that they will convert the dollar with the current prevailing rate, and then that invoice will be translated and transmitted with Kenya shillings to us, so that at the end of the period, they will be able to account for the income and any expenses that they have incurred for that particular business.
Okay. And Frida said, does it mean during the filing of the income tax, one will be required to support the expenses with the invoices issued on e-TIMS?
Yes, one will need to support, and that is why we are telling our taxpayers that they when they when they purchase any goods or service, and it's for purposes of furthering their business, then they will need to issue their PIN number for it to be captured and transmitted to us, so that it can be able to support their expense at the end of the tax period.
Okay. The buyer PIN, when the buyer PIN is not reflecting on iTax photo from team, please, can KRA help? On our end, we are transmitting the data. I've seen two questions on that.
Thank you. So if you capture the buyer PIN and it is not transmitted to KRA, then we actually advise you to get in touch with your Teams supplier, the supplier who sold you the Teams device, so that they can properly configure the field of capturing buyer PIN and transmitting to us. So that is why when you capture the buyer PIN, it is not transmitted to us because of configuration issue with your supplier.
Okay. There's a question on what happens when you invoice a client and they don't give you business.
Sorry, is it a pro forma invoice or is it an invoice? Because we need to differentiate between the two.
I think what probably we need to advise is if you have a client who has not confirmed the business for you, I think the easiest thing to do is issue them a pro forma invoice. Then once the business is confirmed, you issue them a proper an e-Teams invoice or a Teams invoice. I think that would be the easiest way to answer that, especially because time is really running out. We are running out of time. Yeah. Gosh, there are so many questions. Is any doctor in the room? She answered that with the first question. We will share the recording and you can follow through. I run counseling services. Okay, that has been answered. Yes, even the one that has not captured their PIN, it has been answered. There are many service providers who are not e-Teams compliant. How do we capture the expense?
Thank you for that question. We had advised taxpayers that from the time we had advised taxpayers from January to March, because the deadline for extension was extended to 31st March of 2024. The law mandated everyone to come on board by 31st December 2023. But because of the feedback received from the public, it was extended to 31st March 2024. And what we advised taxpayers is that from all invoices that were issued that were not compliant, when one comes on board, then they'll need to reissue those invoices for purposes of claiming that particular expense in your income tax return when you're filing it the following year. Thank you.
And I think finally, what happens to those who missed the deadline to register? What happens to them? Will they attract a penalty or can they still go on and register now?
Thank you. They can go on and register. However, I'd like to mention that the Tax Procedures Act Section 86 actually talks about penalty for failing to comply with the electronic tax system. So maybe I'd advise viewers to just read that particular section, and they will see the penalties, and then they'll need to comply. So they need to come on board. Registration is still ongoing. They need to comply.
Okay. And then somebody is saying, what of court fees and statutory fees like stamp duty taxes? Is e-Team still required?
Okay. For that question, I'll say yes, e-Teams is still required unless they give visibility to the commissioner. And maybe just to say on the stamp, I'll just give an answer on stamp duty. Remember, majority of the stamp duty is usually paid via KRA, and that particular transaction is already visible to us. So when that payment slip, the one you get, the PRN, is already, it captures all the details and it is visible to us. So anything that is not visible to the authority, then an e-Teams invoice is mandatory.
Okay. And all those people who are still asking about the Teams machine and the e-Teams, I think you can pick up the recording later because Lydia answered that question very, very candidly. But she said that you can use your team But eventually, at the end of the day, you'll have to register on items. But hajashauti hiyo sahi. So somebody, probably the last question, if a resident branch of a foreign company only raises invoices at their headquarters, which is out of Kenya, and is not registered for VAT, should they register for eating?
So they are resident company in Kenya. They have permanent establishment in
the
Kenya.
resident is in foreign company, not in Kenya.
I think I had mentioned earlier on that companies that do not have permanent establishment in Kenya, then they don't need to raise an invoice, an electronic tax invoice. The invoices that are raised in the foreign country will be allowable for purposes of expenses. However, if that company has a permanent establishment in Kenya, that foreign company has a permanent establishment in Kenya, then they will need to issue an electronic tax invoice.
Okay. And Lucy Macridis, I have not refused to ask your question, but I thought your question, especially this one, is not on eTIMS, but just let me ask for you. Is there a minimum amount subject to withholding tax?
I think it depends, and maybe I'll just ask them to refer to our website. They will be able to get the details of minimum amounts subject to withholding VAT.
Yeah, withholding is okay. Yeah, you can check. That's why I didn't ask that question, because it's not on eTIMS. And today we are focusing on eTIMS only. And I have not seen any other of your questions, because the questions were to come on the Q&A, not on the chat. If you ask a question on the chat, it's not easy to follow because of the comments. I had requested that people do the questions on the Q&A for ease of asking. But thank you so much. I think, yes, there is need for probably a second session, and maybe the second session will be now with the how to file to remove invoices on VAT. My friend Dorothy has a webinar on Thursday on eTIMS as well, and they're doing this with an accountant. So probably Dorothy, you can also include a session on actual practical ways of filing the return, or rather of creating an invoice, so that we can also share with the people who are on our call tonight. So guys, our webinar is supposed to run up until 9 o'clock. It's 9:25. We have about 15 or 20 questions unanswered. Even if we tried, we cannot finish those today. However, I hope you have learned something. We shall upload the recording to this webinar on our YouTube channel by Friday. And you can actually just listen in and just go through what we have learned, and also get in touch with KRA. They will be willing to demystify the issues that you have not really understood, so that they can make it clear. And I think, David, you can get in touch with me and link me up with the Doctors Association, and we can be able to invite the team, Lydia's team, to take us through what happens with the doctors, and maybe any other for specific institutions, so that then you can get to understand how to do it, so that it's easier for you to file your returns on time, and to also collect or issue invoices on time. Because I know quite a number of businesses will not allow you. Psychologist associations need this. I actually know your CEO, Mr. Moffat. I'll contact him, and then maybe we can link them with Lydia. Lydia, if you're willing to, and you can maybe support them in the specific industry. Because today we were working on it from a general point of view, and maybe next time we can be able to partner with the organizations, and also now be able to give you specific answers. Right now, Lydia, I would request you to give us your parting shots as we come to the end of the session. Lydia, if you can give us your parting shots.
Thank you. Grace. I would like to thank all the listeners who joined the call and took time out of their busy schedule. And thank you for an engaging session on demystifying e-teams. I was grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lydia. I really don't take this for granted. Thank you for your time. You know how the weekend was. Asante, asante sana. I really appreciate that you could prepare and come and share with us the knowledge. And I hope that you're available for the next consult, especially the ones for the industry specific issues. However, thank you so much for you to you, our audience. Please don't forget to save the date for the men's hangout. This is going to be a Nyamachoma hangout on Saturday, the 22nd of June, in celebration of Father's Day and in celebrating the men in our lives. So if you are a man, please save the date and make a point of joining us. We will be sharing the cost of attending the event. But this should be a very exciting time. We will have beautiful, beautiful speakers who are going to speak to us. And our theme is natural born leaders. Everyone expects the men to lead from the home. Even the Bible says that men are leaders in the homes. But are they really, really leaders? Because they're supposed to be natural born leaders. And what happens when their leadership skills are not as strong as they were hoped to be? And how do we support men's mental health? How do we support men's investments, their role as providers, as protectors? How do we enhance that in the modern kind of setup? And this is part of the conversation we're having on Saturday, the 22nd of June. Please join us. In the meantime, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Get It Right with Atara Solutions. Please follow us on Instagram at Atara Solutions. Like our Facebook page, Atara Solutions, and we are on LinkedIn as well as Atara Solutions. Please let's connect with us, and also join our YouTube or rather WhatsApp group. We have a Get It Right WhatsApp group where you can get to know what's coming up on Atara Solutions, because we do this every Tuesday. Next week, we are actually discussing sales. The economy has been hectic. We have a lot of people looking for salesmen. That is what the conversation we're going to have next Tuesday. So if you have a sales team, or you work in sales, or you are running your own business and you want to understand how do you better your sales, then join us next Tuesday from 8 p.m. and that's the conversation we're going to be having. In the meantime, you're going to share on our WhatsApp group. We'll share the conversation happening with Dorothy on Thursday from 7 or 8 p.m. And we are going to share with you the link. It's still on e-teams, and you can also get your questions answered as well. So our audience, we really appreciate you. Catherine Sidandi, thank you so much for, even if you're not feeling well, thank you so much for also being here, and thank Felix on our behalf. Lydia, we really, really appreciate you, of course, with Wanja. Thank you, Wanja, for making this happen as well. And we really, really look forward to more enriching conversations and to having you as well as we keep changing the world through information. With that, and see you next time, same place, as we also look at sales. And let's enjoy some music as we say good night. My name is Grace Nzula, and I'm a consultant with Atara Solutions. And please follow Atara Solutions and give us business as well. You're learning and development, and also HR consulting and HR management course. That is what we do at the business. Karibu sana and good night. Richard, I see you. You just joined us. Good evening. You need to learn how to tax this now. But thank you.